This week, Timmy and I harken back to one of the best movies ever made, The Shawshank Redemption. For those of you who've seen it, you'll know what I'm talking about. For those of you who have not, drop everything and go watch the movie. Just remember, hope is a good thing, maybe the best of things. This week, Timmy and I talk about hope.
Bald, blind, and buddies.
Timmy C, how the hell are you? It's Sunday afternoon. Things are correct in the world. Notre Dame won big, and the Giants lost a heartbreaker. So, seems like it's kind of the way of the world these days. How are you, pal?
Good. The Giants took it to overtime. That's something.
You know, and it's funny because we're going to talk a little bit differently today. We're going to talk about reasons for hope, which I think is important during the holiday season. Mm-hmm. And one of them is going to tie into sports a little bit, and I'll explain because these are decidedly first world problems when you're upset that your team lost, that kind of thing. But they took it into overtime. They were 14-point underdogs. So if you're a betting person, which I'm not, even though they lost, you still won. Mm-hmm. Not that that's much of a consolation, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah. How's everything with you, pal?
It's good. Oh, I have a fact to correct for the podcast. You ready for this?
Yeah.
Kamala Harris's stuffing recipe includes meat. I inaccurately in the last podcast said it was devoid of meat, and I just, we're all about accuracy on this podcast, John. So
okay, so a couple things that jump to mind on this. Why is that something you felt the need to correct? Number one. Number two, I didn't even remember you saying that. And thirdly, were you looking for a vegetarian dish in particular, or is it just something that?
No, I just mentioned it, and it was inaccurate, and I'm not very inaccurate on the podcast, so I had to catch this one.
No, I mean, we should all be so lucky to be as brilliant and as correct all the time as you are.
There
what
we
did
go.
you say?
Yeah.
I'm just waiting for John to catch up or something.
Yeah.
A couple things. Did you happen to watch any of the Notre Dame game yesterday?
I did not. No.
Okay. Well, I want to file a disclaimer here because I don't particularly care for when teams embarrass other teams. Mm-hmm. And the final score was 70-7-0 to 7. And it was against Syracuse, not, Sisters of Christian Charity. I mean, Syracuse has had some serious football players, including arguably the best football player to ever play, Jim Brown.
What's an Orangeman?
I don't know. But what is a fighting Irishman? I don't know the fighting Italians, the fighting English, why the Irish particularly prone
surrendering French, all those, yeah.
What's the shortest book ever written? French War Heroes. But the reason I bring this up is if you watch the game, Notre Dame was up 21-0, and they hadn't even had an offensive play yet. On the second play of the game, the Syracuse quarterback unfortunately threw an interception that was run back for a touchdown. Then Notre Dame kicks off, and they go 3-and-out, and we block the punt and score a touchdown. And wouldn't you know it, we kick off, and Syracuse summarily throws another pick six. So Notre Dame is up 21-0. It's about 5 or so minutes into the game, and Notre Dame has not even run an offensive possession. Further, Jeremiah Love, who I love watching greatness like this. He is the absolute, bar none, best single athlete I've seen at Notre Dame since Rocket Ishmael. I'm not prepared to say he's better than Rocket Ishmael because Rocket Ishmael is part and parcel of the fabric of my youth. What I will tell you is he is exciting as Rocket Ishmael. He only touched the ball 7 total times yesterday. 7 total times. He usually gets it about 25 to 30 times a game. He touched it 7 times, Timmy, and had 170 yards rushing and 3 touchdowns.
Wow.
They just basically handed it to him. He ran up the middle, and Syracuse couldn't tackle him. So it's like they tried to do the right thing, Yeah. I mean, it was 35-0 at the end of the first quarter.
Did they pull the starters pretty early?
Yeah. After the first drive of the second half, not a single player they got all the backups. It was senior day, which is a nice thing.
That is a nice thing, yeah.
It's unfortunate it happens to be at the expense of, Syracuse. Yeah. Because they have seniors too. They have pride and so forth and so on. But it really, I want to go to bat that sometimes the score is not indicative of how the game played out. It really wasn't sort of that they were trying to run it up.
Yeah.
So. But that being said, by the way, that reminds me, do you know the answer? Because, by the way, before I forget, you said you're just going to have you're hosting Thanksgiving, right? Or you're going to
Yeah, we're hosting. What, you're going to Pennsylvania, or what are you doing?
Yeah, so we're 15 years in this house this week, actually. And I remember that distinctly because we moved in the day Kennedy was died. Kennedy was killed November 22nd, 1963. We moved in November 22nd, 2010. Why am I bringing that up? Because, you're young, you're married, you're starting out your new life together. And I say to my mother-in-law, I said, hey, maybe next year we'll host Thanksgiving. And she kind of stops me in my tracks and says, I've had Thanksgiving in my kitchen. I won't say her age, but, 58 straight years at that point. And she says, I'm not going anywhere. So it makes it easy. We go to Scranton for Thanksgiving. They host. I have made it a point to sort of nudge my way into at least help doing dishes, which I know has been difficult for Kathy to allow, my mother-in-law. But we either go there or we go out to Ohio. So we don't ever host Thanksgiving. So I kind of enjoy it, to be honest with you. So
yeah, yours is it's fine.
Yeah. And are you going to have Kamala Harris's
oh yeah, I think so.
Stuffing?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Easy.
I'm telling you, the best thing that came out of her being on the national stage
was her stuffing.
Yes. The most substance. Let's just say that.
Okay. Again, I will tell you that she was not my choice. And I even said this to my father-in-law, Kathy's husband, just in the last 48 hours or so. I said it would have been a whole lot easier for me to swallow had there been a primary. And had she won, good on her. And then lost to Trump, okay, fine. But it's very difficult that she was sort of selected by no one but Joe Biden and basically, bestowed upon the country. Here, you like her. It's like that Seinfeld.
Yeah.
You like these people. Oh, okay. So, but anyhow, trivia question. Thanksgiving. I had asked, there's some disagreement by historians. Most people point to Harry S. Truman as the first person to sort of do the presidential pardon of the turkey. Other historians have said there's a specific instance of Abraham Lincoln doing something similar to for his son. But when did it officially become the presidential pardon? Do you know, Timmy?
I'm going to guess Richard Nixon.
Close.
He was looking ahead.
It was recent. It was actually George H.W. Bush. It wasn't until 1989 that it officially became part of like the everyday lexicon, I think is the way you say it. Huh. Yeah, he was the one. He was sort of, established it as kind of a tradition. And
kinder, gentler thing,
I liked him as a president. Yeah. What did you think of George H.W. Bush?
I liked him. He did.
I think he's an eminently decent and honorable.
And sometimes the best thing to do is to not do anything. And I think he did that.
Absolutely. He did nothing when the Berlin Wall came down. He didn't celebrate. He didn't jump on their grave. He didn't run it up 70-7.
Yeah.
Per se. I did notice that George W. Bush gave a eulogy at the funeral this past couple days for former Vice President Dick Cheney, Richard Cheney, and Trump nor Vance were invited. I find that's terrible that we're at that position now, but I understand it. Yeah. So, yeah. But anyhow, that leads to this week's trivia question. Speaking of 70-7, because Notre Dame scored so many darn points and so quickly, 35-0 wasn't even the first quarter yet, and they were literally about to drive, and they scored on the very first play of the second quarter, and they would have broken all of the scoring records that they scored 42. I'm glad they didn't. Mm-hmm. The question I have for you, Timmy, and this is completely abstract, and if anybody gets this, I'll be amazed without looking it up. Do you know the most points Notre Dame has ever scored in a football game?
Ooh, nope.
Answer next week, and I'll tell you who it was against.
Wow, and it's more than 70? I guess it must be.
Quite a bit more, actually. Quite a bit more. Yeah. So, yeah. But it's a long time ago.
Yeah.
So, yeah. What are we talking about, Timmy? Why don't you lead us in?
We're talking about hope, John. We've done some heavier podcasts. The news is out there. And I thought, we thought it was a good time to just talk about things that give us a little bit of hope.
I like it.
Yeah.
I do. I like it a lot. What is this particularly just because of the holiday season, or is there something that motivated this? Because you had reached out to me specifically about this a couple times. Maybe because we talk quite a bit about current events and politics, and that can be depressing. Or
I think so. Yeah, I think that's what it is. Because if you follow the news, you can graph this. The amount of time people spend on social media and their mood plummets. Like there's like a direct relationship. So, and I know you're doing well on that front, but I think just this notion that there are things that are worrisome, of course, but I think it's good to stop and say, here's why we have some hope.
Yeah, it seems totally logical to me that social media can lead to depression. I'm wondering how long the pendulum has to swing before it starts to swing back.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
So I'm sure you see it in your everyday life.
I do.
Being a psychiatrist.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Yep.
So, well, why don't you start us off, Timmy? I've got 3. You've got 3.
Yep.
Why don't you start us off? We'll go back and forth.
And we have not discussed these people, so this is going to be a surprise.
No. And we want it to be spontaneous.
Yeah.
I think you'll be pleasantly surprised by a couple of mine.
So there are kind of general trends and patterns. So the first one I want to say is the university has been responsible for wonderful things. The advance in science, in engineering, in political thought. And so I'm hopeful that there are signs that the university system in this country is improving, reforming, and getting back on track. We talked recently about the University of Austin, which was basically just started in 2021. It was conceived of. And they had their first class in 2024. They've got funding behind them, and their goal is to not accept federal money. And I think as a new institution directed to the idea of free inquiry, free speech, free thought, I think it's wonderful. And there's signs of reform on other colleges too. The FIRE, the Foundation for Individual Rights and Expression, gave the highest number of colleges its green free speech ranking in the past year. So it's still only about 15%, but it's better. And more colleges are signing on to the, it's called the University of Chicago Statements about free speech on campus. Now 100 institutions say they endorse those, which is a start. So I think, the university is heading back to where it should be. And that gives me hope because a lot comes from the university. So
that's interesting. And it's funny. Do you think, question for you, I did not see that one coming. So good on you, Timmy. Do you think there's a direct correlation between Trump being in office and free speech? Because not every action has to necessarily be positive, although I loathe everything Trump and his administration stand for, what they represent, all these other things. I understand why Americans voted for him, given the choice we were given. But further, some of the things he's done, I don't like his methodology of cleaning up, for instance, immigration. But it has sort of highlighted the importance, and maybe it's forcing people to the table. Do you think the same can be said about the university system? Because they had an unlimited budget that was coming from the federal government, no questions asked, and these kids are leaving with $150,000 in debt, and nobody's saying, is this a sustainable model? Do you think there's something to that Trump is either directly or indirectly responsible for free speech sort of having a rebirth?
I think there's a lot of factors. I also think it was really embarrassing. If you recall when those heads of the universities were in front of Congress talking about the protests on campus, following October 7th and all that. And I think people got it. This is a recurring theme. I think people got a glimpse of how things really are. And I think that started to also budge things.
Well, it's the oldest rule, too. The money started drying up, right?
Yes.
The wealthy benefactors who sometimes were Jewish, sometimes were not, were saying, I'm not giving you any more money until you fix these problems. And it's amazing how that gets people, how that hones the senses, doesn't it?
Or when federal judges say, I think it's Yale, we won't take anybody from Yale until you clean up this mess, for clerking and things like, I hadn't heard that one. I think it's James Ho, maybe. A federal judge says, I'm just not taking them. So,
yeah. And again, I think it's important that in life it's a very complex organism, life is, and there's a lot of interchangeable parts, and there's oftentimes the law of unintended consequences. If one of the consequences of the Trump presidency is that free speech has a rebirth, I'm okay with that. I'm not okay with how we got there, right? But I'm okay with, I think, unfortunately, in politics, the ends do justify the means. And that's kind of the dirty nature of the business. Get it done. Doesn't matter how, as long as it's done, and we'll figure out, afterward.
Well, I think the trick, as I understand it, is simultaneously seeing the long-term goal and big picture, but be willing to make compromises in the short term that still get you headed in that direction. I think you have to simultaneously, a good politician has to or a statesman has to simultaneously balance both.
Okay. Mine's a little bit more sort of esoteric, if you will, but I am actually very hopeful, and I tend to be reminded of this with relative frequency, of human ingenuity and what is affectionately referred to in economic terms as creative destruction. And one of the things I always remind people is, think of the life. You and I you're almost 50, I'm 50. Think of the life, or think of how much things have evolved since your grandparents or even great-grandparents were born, what they have seen. 2 world wars, the advent of mass air transportation. Think of the pharmacological development, whether it be the birth control pill, antidepressants, heart medicines, all these sorts of things. there's a funny line in the movie, The Ballad of Talladega Nights, The Ballad of Ricky Bobby. It's a silly, goofy, NASCAR movie, but he jokes, with the advances in modern science and my high income, it's not insurmountable to imagine I can live to 200, 250. And I'm just reminded of that. It's terrible to see people being put out of work. And, it's one of these things that they always say, I guarantee the person who was the last person making, buggy whips probably made the best goddamn buggy whip in the world. But it changed because we invented the automobile, right?
Yeah.
And look at how much that's changed our life. And just think about this. The wealthiest person in the United States, possibly the world, there's some debate on this, is Jeff Bezos. The company he created is 30 years old. And it's remarkable how much it's a testament to human ingenuity. You can never, and I think it's particularly acute in the United States. That's not me being sort of jingoistic or nationalistic. It's just, I think there's something that's in the water system, if you will, in our country. We're the world's largest economy by a large factor and only 4% of the world's population. And I'm just continually reminded of human ingenuity and creative destruction. It's fascinating for me to think what my great-grandchildren will be experiencing. You know what I mean? And
Absolutely.
When they're 50 years old.
Yeah. Just 2 points. Hot running water and music.
Right?
In music,
yeah.
Right?
Hot running water. Like that didn't exist 70 years ago. Even 50 years ago.
Yeah. And a lot of the planet, right? But I can walk in and I can just turn a knob and have hot running water. Like, that's a luxury. Or be able to listen to essentially any, you have to stream it and pay, of course, but listen to any song you like. A king would have a band, or somebody
right.
on retainer, right? Only the wealthiest, or you'd play an instrument, right? If you wanted to hear it. It's so amazing, just the things
You've said it before. You live like a king.
We do. I live
years
like
ago.
a king.
Yeah. But, one of the things I do remind people, and this is one of the things I'm going to kind of harp on because this is going to be a reason for hope as well. Talked about illegal immigration before. I understand the problem with illegal immigration. I do. But immigrants really are the backbone, the heartbeat of this country, if you will. And I remind people of the Fortune 500 companies in this country. Half of them, almost 300 of them, were founded by either first generation or children of first generation immigrants. There is a direct correlation with that. You said there's a direct line between being on social media and your well-being. There's a direct correlation between embracing immigration and having business and creative destruction. I just think that it's something that we got to get a handle on, and I'm hopeful that we will, because I'm never disappointed by trusting human ingenuity.
Yeah, and to your point, John, I think sometimes people who come here can see what we have from afar because they don't have the freedom, or they don't have the opportunity, right? And they appreciate it even more than we do.
I have a friend of mine who's a psychiatrist who has said for years that truly the happiest people in the world are people with limited or no means, because everything is a pleasant surprise to them.
Yeah.
And I think there's an element of that. Yeah.
And I think that sort of refreshes, and builds America over time. I totally agree with that one.
Yeah. What do you got for number 2, Timmy?
So I'm going to call this reclaiming our children. There are a lot of moves. Children are clearly an important resource if you want to look at it in economic terms. But there are steps taken to sort of reclaim the role of parent in children's lives. For example, there's a lot of parent-driven cell phone bans in schools, trying to get that out of the classroom, including Wisconsin. The governor signed it. There's also Muhammad v. Taylor, which was a Supreme Court decision that said parents have the right to opt out of compulsory progressive education on gender terms in the classroom, right? What really cracks me up, though, I got to do a segue here, John. The ACLU.
No, you?
Yeah.
I'm sure you're going to throw in the University of Wisconsin
Nope,
and crazy
not
California
this one.
liberals on
No.
this one. No?
The ACLU, who will...
Tell people what the ACLU is.
The American...
The dozens and dozens
Yeah,
listening.
the American Civil Liberties Union. This place that treats voluntary prayer at a graduation like the plague, right? You can't have it. Wants to compel... Signs an amicus brief that wants to compel your children to have to sit through indoctrination, right? Anyways.
You know what I like is there's no shading with the draconian terms you use. Indoctrination, and you just make it sound like, oh, we're just all getting together and crossing our arms and saying a Hail Mary silently. No, Timmy. No, I'm sorry. I can't let that go unchallenged. This is how we get Trump on the other side. No, it's the exact same thing. I'm sorry, but separation of church and state is in the Constitution. It's there. You know, if you want to make an argument that children shouldn't be forced to watch transgender movies, you're not going to hear me disagree.
Okay.
So I get what you're saying, but I'm just not going to let you. I'm just not going to let you be Timmy C and be like, oh, this indoctrination from these leftists.
Tell me what the civil liberty is in compelling participation in education. What civil liberty are you upholding?
I'm not terribly abreast of all the ins and outs of that case. What I will tell you is if a case makes it to the Supreme Court, you have to read the case to understand what the case law is, what is at stake, and that kind of thing. Give me a couple of days, and I promise you I will read up on why the ACLU took that stance. I'm not going to presuppose something out of thin air. What I can tell you is most Supreme Court cases, I legitimately can see why it went one way or the other, but I wouldn't be surprised if it went the other way. Right. You know what I mean? It's just, it's so complicated, so convoluted. There's so much case law that's usually involved. Let me find out.
Okay.
But your point is well received, that parents are retaking charge. So please continue.
Yeah. And for example, in Australia, there's that new trying to keep underage kids off the internet.
Oh, really? I hadn't even heard about it.
Yeah,
Tell me about that.
Well, I think it's under 15. They're working on age verification. It's probably going to be a mess. But at least they're trying it. The UK, Sweden, parts of this country are dialing back on medical interventions for young people who have transgender ideas. And so, you know, these are things where we're saying, hey, let's slow down. Let's be careful with our kids.
You know, my daughter, who's 11, plays in an all-girls soccer league. And today there was a boy on the field that I understand. I don't know. I'm not privy to it. I don't want to prejudge. But it was a boy, Timmy. Yeah. And the 11-year-olds were like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
You know, so I get it. And I have all the respect in the world. I'm a big believer. Let people live the way they want to live. But if age and maturity is going to mean something, it has to mean something both ways, does it not?
I think so. And you talk a lot about, you know, consent, right? And I think
I'm a big believer in those two terms, adult and consent.
And so, for example, I think, you know, women should consent to letting people into their sport. If you're going to follow that, right? For example. But I think this notion of parents taking back a little bit of control over their kids. It's not just, they're not just a property of the state, is a good thing.
What's that called again? Oh, I don't know. Being a parent. You know, I mean, I just love when these people are like, oh, Timmy doesn't like so-and-so. I've actually seen little kids hit their parents. I saw it recently and I was just aghast. I mean, could you imagine? I'm a terrible parent. I'm a terrible person. You know what I mean? I always joke. But even I recognize, no, kids shouldn't be hitting their parents.
Well, have you seen this, John? We used to, everybody else's parent was sort of, what do they call it? In loco parentis for us.
In parentis locus.
Yeah. So, you know, what they said would go too. And now you say something to somebody else's kid,
they come storming over to your door.
Yeah, they're like, who the heck are you?
We have kind of an agreement. I understand it's kind of a fine line. I get it. I do. And we have kind of agreement in our neighborhood. We have a really good group of people around here. Mm-hmm. And one of my buddies was like, I'm really sorry that I yelled. And I was like, no, he'll listen. Like, my kids will listen if it comes. You know what I mean? It's almost like I don't like being my children's coach because I'm not going to be effective. They're not going to listen to me the same way they would.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's definitely, you got to walk carefully. I get it. But to your point, it's well received that, yeah, you know, if you're doing something wrong, it's not just my parents that should tell me. It's, you know, so-and-so's parents. And
absolutely.
So
I mean, I was in fear of my buddy's dad, just as probably more than my own.
Right.
So.
Right. The irony is with your handicap, he was probably like 5'2" and claimed he was 6'5".
No, he was a big man.
Oh, you could tell. Yeah. Actually, for those of you who don't know Timmy, I asked him one time. I'll never forget this. I don't know if you remember this, Timmy. It was probably 1995, and I said, "What do I look like?" And you literally, I think you got it like within 2 pounds of what I weighed. You had it within a half inch of and you kind of described my face, and I was like, "This is creepy." I mean, you had it, so you're very perceptive. So yeah, it's a testament to you. I'm reminded that my second reason for hope is the following. Have you ever seen the movie Love Actually? I've talked about it before.
I have
And
not yet. It has Hugh Grant in it, John.
It has Hugh Grant, but he's excellent, and it's a very, very sweet story of love vignettes, if you will. It's 6 or 7 stories that kind of, some work out, most work out, some don't, but it's stories of the interchanging of these people in London around the holiday season. And at the beginning of the movie, Hugh Grant, who plays the prime minister in the movie, talks about how there's a general consensus around the world that hate is dominating. And he said, I just don't see that. And he said, if I need a reminder of that, I tell people to think about a terrible day, September 11th. He said, because all those phone calls were phone calls of love. Nobody was screaming about, getting even and all these other things. It was, I hope to see you. I hope this goes well and we love you and blah, blah, blah. And he said, if you look around, you're going to find that love really is all around. And I kind of feel the same way about the youth today. I think the youth has gotten, and by youth, I'm talking about, and this is probably personal for me because my children are almost 14, almost 12, and going to be 9. So I'm kind of in a unique in-between generations, if you will. A generation's 25 years, right? And we're Gen Y, I think.
I think we're
Correct
X.
me if I'm wrong. I think we're Gen Y. You might be right, but I think we're a Gen Y. But what I'm getting at is there's a general consensus that young people today, and I've seen it unfortunately, are not the hardest workers. They come out of college, they feel entitled. They want to make $300,000 a year, and they're 24 years old. They want, unlimited vacation. We've talked about this, right? I mean, you see that as a general consensus. Well, I have hope. I haven't lost hope for that generation. What I'm saying is just seeing my children and their kind of friends and their behavior. I have a lot of hope for the future.
Yeah.
They're genuinely good people, polite, nice. They play sports. They stay out of trouble. They look out for each other. I really have. I was heartened by a couple of instances in the last month or two with friends of my children that just I won't embarrass anybody on this podcast, even though 7 people are listening. But I was really it really warmed the heart, if you will, of just seeing young people, what they their hope, their passion for certain things, and I have a tremendous amount of hope. I'm like Hugh Grant and Love Actually. I think this generation behind us has gotten kind of a bad rap, whether it's earned or not remains to be seen. But I think the generation after that gives me a lot of hope for what's down the line. So
yeah, I totally agree. And I always tell my kids and other parents, if you can just get your kids to buckle down, do the work, and show up, they're going to be like way ahead of a good chunk of their peers.
Right.
Just with that.
Well, I joke about this, that sometimes watching Intervention is a reminder that I'm doing okay. Like, you don't want to see these poor people that are suffering in the grips of addiction and all these other things, but it's like just getting up in the morning, showering, and like going to work. I've crossed off 90% of the obligations I have in life. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
it's just,
absolutely.
And I even when we were talking to Peter, Paul's friend, a couple months back, his name escapes me, but just
Graham,
it was just a reminder that these kids are extremely bright. Now, granted, you and I live in relatively affluent areas. You're in Madison, Wisconsin. I live in Westchester, Pennsylvania. I get that. But I'm telling you, just even in sports and other things, and just seeing some of the competition, and I'm kind of dismayed by some of the parents, to be honest with you. But the kids really are a shining light, and I'm kind of hopeful based upon that. So
yeah, totally. Well, my next reason for hope is a change or a continued change in the information media landscape. Like, the barriers to entry to getting ideas and things out there are probably as low as they've ever been. Like, 2 yahoos from Notre Dame make a podcast, right?
I thought you were talking about Yahoo. I was like, that's kind of a big name.
Yeah.
Yeah, 2 dipshits who live next door to each other or have a podcast. And we're talking to people about expanding it, and we're going to talk with some other people.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. So you got that. I mean, you got Joe Rogan, right? Came out of nowhere, right? Has a giant podcast, talks about ideas. You can agree, disagree, platform, all that stuff, right? But the Free Press got started up by Barry Weiss, became a real thing, and then now suddenly she's at CBS.
CBS.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's Substack, is a place for writers. I like to follow John Stossel, on YouTube. He's a kind of libertarian. You got your Matt Taibbi's and your Michael Schellenbergers, and we get a chance.
Contrarians. Yeah,
we get a chance to see the whole story. And I think that's amazing. I think it's going to be harder and harder. There's so much information, and that's a problem. And there's algorithms, but I think it's harder to fool all the people most of the time, with that kind of landscape. And that gives me hope.
And on a personal note, Timmy, and I don't want to embarrass our upcoming guests who have agreed to join us in 2026, both journalists, both significant of note, right? And they both responded almost instantaneously. One was on a flight to the Middle East and took the time to respond to two yahoos, as you say, right?
Yeah.
So it's just, I think you're absolutely right. I think I think people are chasing ideas and they're finding new ways to access what they want to hear. I think that's great.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And I think it has been so helpful on a lot. I mean, on a lot of fronts to just understand these problems from this new media side, and then it feeds back and then holds people accountable, and that's what media is supposed to do anyways. So I like it.
Well, Timmy, my third one is going to be sort of a potpourri, almost a stew, if you will, or a jambalaya. Throw a couple things together, and that'll all make sense when I explain it.
Yeah.
I'm going to do sports, politics, and religion. You ready? And let me explain in turn, okay?
Yep.
The reason I'm doing sports, I understand. In my soul, I understand it's a complete and total waste of time for me to spend any emotional energy rooting for Notre Dame, getting upset about the Giants, the Yankees losing the World Series, all of these sorts of things. Yeah, right?
Yep.
Yet there is something that binds people and societies and communities together, and I see it all the time living here in Philadelphia. I hate Eagles fans, yet I love... And I say that jokingly, but the reason it's tough to root for the Eagles is because of Eagles fans. Yet I find myself rooting for them because it's just so nice for the city. Everybody's in a good mood. And I'm reminded of this because the Giants have been just awful. And when I say awful, I mean the worst team. They're either the worst or the second worst team in the NFL the last decade. Yet I have hope. We have lost some heartbreaking games this year, and it doesn't even bother me because we might have the most important position in sports finally figured out, which is quarterback of an NFL football team. Jackson Dart may or may not be, but I haven't had that in a long time, and that gives me hope. Why am I hopeful about politics? Because things are getting done, and I can't believe I'm going to use Trump as an example, but he had the newly elected mayor of New York, Mondami, who he's, roundly lambasted, down into the White House, invited him. They had a great meeting. Even if it's an image, it still says, hey, we can get things done, right? We had two relative moderates, whether you agree with them or disagree with them, they're not flamethrowers. You didn't like Kamala Harris, I understand that. But like Abigail Spanberger and Mickey Sherrill, who won respectively the Virginia governorship and New Jersey governorship, they seem pretty much cut out of the cloth of Central America. I mean, America, depending on the election cycle, is either center left a little bit, center right a little bit, but the key word there being center. And seeing things like that just kind of gives me hope. And to that end, why do I bring in religion? Because the Catholic Church, to me, is wrong. I don't want to insult people, but I'd say give me 10 issues, I'd say they're wrong on 6 of them. But you know which one they're right on? The treatment of the least among us. And they really have sort of shown their backbone, standing up to some of these illegal detentions of illegal immigrants, these kinds of things. I have a friend of mine, and I won't embarrass him, I won't tell you his background, but he's pretty knowledgeable both about human behavior and about the church. And he said, look, if you want to know what the church is wrong on, read anything they've ever written about sex. He said, if you want to know what they're right on, read anything they've ever argued about when it comes to the least among us, the poor, and helping the least among us. They're right. The Catholic Church has that cornered. And just seeing those kinds of things, all sort of as an amalgam, if you will, Timmy, kind of gives me hope. We might have a quarterback. Politics doesn't have to be vitriol all the time. We might have, some center people. It seems like the Democrats have finally gotten a message that could resonate and bring us kind of back to the center. We went to one extreme, now we can go back, you know what I mean? And the church is really sort of showing me something by kind of going and standing up for these illegal detentions and deportations and such. It's not to say that illegal immigration is to be forgiven. It's just a recognition that the least among us is particularly vulnerable and needs protection. So I'm hopeful based on those kind of, 3 third rails of politics. It's what's the 3 things you're not supposed to talk about? Sex, politics, and religion.
Religion, yeah.
Yeah, I did sports, politics, and religion.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm kind of hopeful though. I have hope. I legitimately have hope.
Yeah. So. When I think about hope, John, there's this scene in The Lord of the Rings, the Two Towers. And there's this king, I think it's the Riders of Rohan, and he's in this dark throne room, and there's a guy who whispers in his ear that I think it's Wormtongue is his name, and he just sort of casts a spell over this king that he doesn't think he's capable of anything, and he's kind of a naysayer, and Aragorn, the hero, drags him out into the sunlight. And the guy, comes back to himself and realizes the power and the strength he does have. And I think that's what we need to do sometimes in America, right? We need to acknowledge the proud tradition of the West, right? We need to remember about democracy and freedom of thought and freedom of expression and initiative and free enterprise, right? And community and those kind of things. When we remember that, when we step outside and we see the horizon, that's what brings me hope.
I like it.
Yeah.
I like it. Yeah. I'm surprised you didn't throw in, those GD liberals, California ruining everything. I was kind of hoping in your draconian, indoctrination from Gavin Newsom liberals,
This is the Hope Podcast, John.
I know. But we're having fun, aren't we?
Yeah.
Two buddies, two yahoos.
Two yahoos. Do you remember last year I tried to look her up. I haven't seen anything new. That pilot who would fly around Alaska and drop turkeys out of her airplane to people off the grid.
I do remember that.
Yeah, like that kind of like that's the ingenuity you were talking about. That's what gives me hope. People like that.
Yeah, the thing that I always have an addendum to that though is it's great when advancement happens. Just don't forget about the people that lost their job.
Yeah. Right?
I mean, you got to retrain them and put them back to work and those kinds of things. Help the guy that lost the buggy whip job be an auto mechanic, Yeah. So, well, Timmy, since this is the Hope Podcast, I think what we're going to do is we're going to focus on heroes, right? Tell us what we're going to do now.
Yeah, we'll do some heroes.
Okay. And you wanted to talk about one that jumped out at you from the earlier this year. I have one that I will always remember, and it kind of dovetails with this week's hero. So do you mind if I go first?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So there is a fellow that died recently. His name is Vincent. I'm going to botch it, but it's spelled Fedorchak. Fedorchak?
Fedorchak, yeah.
He was affectionately known as Fuzz One, and that was sort of his street name. He became a world-renowned graffiti artist. And how you feel about graffiti or otherwise, I understand that. But there have been major court cases that have established it is protected free speech and that it does qualify for certain protections under antiquities laws and painting and such. I tend to basically think public order is important to maintain. But that being said, I'm calling him out as my hero because he died. He's only 63 years old, but you know what he did? And it's a constant reminder of the goodness, the inherent goodness that people have, even in their grave. He donated his organs, and he has saved two people. His liver and his kidney were both used and saved. There's all sorts of rules. You would probably be more abreast of this about who can be disclosed, but they were between 25 and 75. Yeah. But it's a fact that he saved two lives. And I find simple acts like that. We celebrate sports heroes, Jackson Dart being the quarterback and Jeremiah Love at Notre Dame, and good on them. They're entertainers that do what they're supposed to, blah, blah, blah. But it's a constant reminder of the goodness of everyday people that I think sometimes gets overlooked. And to that end, the hero that I want to call out again from earlier this year, this fellow has something on his resume that I think most of us would kill for. He is estimated to have saved 2.4 million people. No, it's not Oscar Schindler. His name was James Harrison. He was an Australian man and a prolific blood donor who had a very rare sort of type of blood that was particularly known to help anti-D, it was called. Have you heard of this, Timmy?
Yeah.
A rare antibody called anti-D. It's used in medication given to pregnant mothers whose blood is at risk of attacking their unborn babies. He donated all the way throughout his life, and he is estimated to have saved 2.4 million lives. Could you imagine being able to have that on your gravestone?
Oh, my goodness.
That, to me, is just a testament. You know who the new Trump ballroom should be named after? You know who the Washington Commanders should name their stadium after? An Australian by the name of James Harrison, who saved 2.4 million people. He, to me, is a reminder that it is everyday people who do these, things without notice. I had never heard of him till his obit. And he passed in the last year, and he, to me, is the hero of the year for me. He's probably the hero of the decade. Hell, he might be hero of the century. So I just wanted to leave on a positive note with those two people, that even in passing, it's just a reminder of the goodness of people.
Well, and also the Red Cross is really having trouble with blood donors these days. That people they're giving up to $40, like in gift cards, to go donate where I'm at. So you don't have to be James Harrison, or no, is that the Beatle? Or no, that's the other president.
No, his name was James Harrison. No, you're correct. Yeah. William Henry Harrison.
You don't have to be him, but you guys can save lives with just simple blood donation too. Is just a plug for people out there. So my hero this week is a lady named Marianne Devine, who also recently passed away. Over 25 years, She and her family raised 23 puppies to become seeing eye dogs at the seeing eye. So they train dog guides, guide dogs for blind folks like me. I've got my fourth dog from seeing eye, and she was the head of the local puppy raisers club in Monmouth County.
Monmouth County, New Jersey. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And for those that don't know, Timmy and I grew up, or I lived most of my life in northern New Jersey, just 10 minutes from where the Seeing Eye Foundation. So Timmy and I actually got to see each other after college for a bit. So
yeah.
Before I don't mean to interrupt, Electra your first guide dog?
She was, yeah.
Oh, she was the best.
Yeah.
So go ahead, continue.
So
please.
no, well, it's just, and this is day in and day out. This lady and her sons, who are now in their 30s, some of the sons got scholarships because of it. Each boy raised a couple dogs or more, and it just those dogs. It's probably bittersweet because you enjoy the time with the puppy, but you also have to give them up, and the people who work with them down the road are grateful for people like Marianne Devine. So she's my hero.
That's great, Timmy. Good for you.
Yeah. Yeah, and the other hero to highlight, there's just so many amazing ones. That there was that Scott Ruskin, the diver rescue guy who saved about 165 people.
Oh, right, that guy. Yeah.
Yeah. He was great. We had the community that moved a bookstore, the charity that buys up medical debt. They're all my heroes. I can't pick one.
Yeah, and I didn't like having to pick one. I mean, I should have done it. Yeah, I mean, but having 2.4 million lives to your credit is he's a notch above for me. So.
Yeah.
But no, I remember, the diver, I forgot about it. He even said he was basically a Yahoo who just happened to, be good.
He was like an accountant or something who retrained.
Yeah. So. But I think what you and I have the same vein is that everyday people doing extraordinary things.
Yeah. Or just doing the hard everyday things well, or just looking out for your neighbor. Like those yelling at the other kid if he's running in the street, right? That's
It reminds me of Andy Dufresne, which you're going to have as our outro for this episode. That look, hope is the best of things, is a great thing, and maybe the best of things. And if you need hope, by the way, go watch Shawshank Redemption.
I love that.
So yeah. Well, listen, Timmy, I'll sign off as I normally do and say, hey, misbehave, drive fast, take chances. But I'll also say, here's to having hope, and everybody have a wonderful Thanksgiving. And just remember my Thanksgiving golden rule. Do you know what that is, Tim?
Ooh, what is it?
No politics at the dinner table.
Okay.
Just stay away from it. Especially you, Tim.
Especially me. Yeah.
Yeah. Do me a favor. Honor the golden rule.
All right.
You guys have a great week, Timmy. Love you, pal.
I'll try. And this is Tim saying, have a happy Thanksgiving, everybody out there. And if everybody likes what you're doing, you're probably not doing anything worthwhile. Let's keep talking. We'll finish with some words from Andy Dufresne.
I'll keep an eye out for you, and the chessboard ready. Remember, Red, hope is a good thing, maybe the best of things, and no good thing ever dies. I will be hoping that this letter finds you, and finds you well. Your friend, Andy.